So we're going to talk today about slope-intercept form, and we're going to rely on our lesson on slope to start with. So let's talk about that to begin with. So slope is just the change in y over the change in x. So that's why it's going to end up being just a subtraction problem of y over a subtraction problem with x. So let's look at this example at the bottom here. So I'm going to do this 5 minus negative 2, and then I'm going to do 3 minus 6. Well, I come up with a 5 minus negative 2, that's going to get me to 7, because keep change. My 3 minus 6 is going to get me negative 3. So the final answer on the slope of these 2 points, the line that goes through these 2 points, is going to be negative 7 over 3. It doesn't really matter what the negative goes with it, just be negative 7/3. So frequently when we're solving for linear equations, we're going to refer to slope by the letter m. So that's going to be really important to remember. So m is going to be the slope. So m for these 2 points would be equal to negative 7/3. So a couple of days ago in class we talked about solving graphs using intercepts. And that's when we did the thing when x is 0 and then y is 0 using the chart. So for this type of line form, all I care about is the y-intercept. What I'm going to do is here, I'm just going to plug in when x is equal to 0. When x is equal to 0, in this case here, it's going to end up being 3 times 0 minus 5. And the y-intercept is going to be negative 5. Okay, so the y-intercept is really important because it's where it crosses the y-axis. So one of the first points I could put down would be 0, negative 5. That's probably going to be the first point you would put down. And y-intercept is frequently referred to in equations and linear equations by the value b. So in this case here, b would be equal to negative 5. So this is the slope-intercept form of an equation. Now we know what x and y are. They're just the values that work on the coordinate plane. We talked a little bit about how the slope is m. We also talked about how where the line crosses the y-axis, that's the y-intercept is b. So if I have the following equation, then I can immediately identify the slope. The slope of this equation is going to be equal to 2, because that's where the m is. And here I can immediately identify that the y-intercept is going to be 5. So again, the y-intercept simply means when x is 0, what's the point? It's going to be 0, 5 would be the solution. So if I was giving you this one, then what I would expect you to do in slope-intercept form, as this is, and I ask you to identify the slope is just going to be m, which is also the slope. It's going to be equal to negative 1/2, because that's just what that part is there in front of the x. It's always going to be the part in front of the x. And then the y-intercept is going to be negative 2. So it's really easy to recognize these on a graph. So let's say we're going to graph this equation. And this is already in slope-intercept form. That means I can immediately come up with when x is 0, y is going to be 5, because that's the y-intercept. When x is 0, that term goes away. I'm left with just that. So it's going to be 0, 5, which is going to be right there. So that's my first point. Now I'm going to pay attention to this slope part. The slope is 2/3. Remember in slope, the change in y is over the change in x. So what that means is, just like in those graphs we were looking at, this is going to go up 2 for the change in y and over 3, 1, 2, 3 for the change in x. That's going to be a point on there. And then I can do that again, up 2 for the change in y, that top number, and over 3 for the change in x. And then I can draw my line, and actually I can do this in the reverse here since I can see the pattern. And I have a nice neat line there, and that would be the easiest way of drawing it just because I'm using slope-intercept form. So just as another example here, I have y is equal to negative 2x minus 3. So my first point I should be graphing is this part here. When x is 0, y is negative 3, because that is the y-intercept. So x0, y negative 3. Okay, my second point should be I should look at the slope here. The slope is negative 2. That's the same as negative 2 over 1. So that means every time I go over 1, I'm going to go down 2. Over 1, down 2. Over 1, down 2. Over 1, down 2. So that's where my line is going to go down. It's going to go down 2 over 1 each time.